Hey, this is Mike from the Run Testers. I'm here with Nick and Kieran, and in this video we're going to be talking about great smartwatches for runners. Now this year for our top running watch picks, we've decided to do things slightly differently. So we've broken things out into individual categories to make things a little bit more digestible. So if you are a beginner runner and you're looking for a great affordable running watch, we've got a video for that. If you are looking for a great value running watch, whether that's a cheap end or the kind of more premium end, we've got a video for that as well too. We've got a video dedicated to mid-range watches, high-end watches, and this smartwatch video as well. Okay, so let's get straight into it. And we're going to go straight into our favorite smartwatch. I think we've been unanimous in terms of our pick here, and that is the Apple Watch Ultra 2. Now, the Apple Watch Ultra 2 launched last year. This year, we've got a bit more of a low-key update. We've got a new color version. Now, the Apple Watch Ultra 2 is the biggest Apple Watch that you can get in terms of Apple's collection. This is the watch that's got dual band GPS. This is the watch that's got, in comparison to the Apple Watch Ultra, a much brighter display. It's got Apple's latest chip in here as well too, and that's really about kind of enhancing the performance, the processing, enabling kind of better integration with Siri, and just generally giving you a better experience. You're getting the same battery life as the Apple Watch Ultra 2. Now, I think, as I said, we've been unanimous in terms of this being our pick of the top smartwatch for runners. Now, Nick, maybe I'll start with you first. Why have you picked this? Why was this our pick as our top smartwatch for runners?
So I've run with an Apple Watch for many years, even when it was the series version. The Apple Watch Ultra brought some things that people, I think, have been asking for a long time in terms of having an extra button to take laps on, that kind of thing. But actually, I think the biggest one, the hardware on this watch is great. The dual band GPS is very accurate. You've got a pretty good heart rate monitor. It's comparable to most watches, which is up and down at times. Got the action button. And then the software that Apple just keeps working on, and I think that's what really makes it stand out in the smartwatch world. Like, I just don't think I've come across other smartwatch companies making as good adjustments to their native workouts app in terms of improving the stats available, the data screens going on, and then the Apple Watch Ultra, like all Apple Watches, opens you up to the App Store. And this is where Apple has such a big lead on other smartwatches, because the App Store is just laden with amazing running apps that are designed specifically for the Apple Watch. So you basically end up with a very capable tracker as a native tracker, but everything that you kind of might be missing out on compared to sports watches, aside from battery life, which is still not great, obviously, as it's a smartwatch, you can find in the App Store for apps like Work Outdoors and U-Race and many other apps I've talked about many times, I think. So I think that's what you get with the Apple Watch. You get a very good tracker with a very good App Store, and just the hardware on the Ultra 2 does make it a big step up on the Series 10, because you've got that dual band GPS and the lap button, which is, some people never use lap buttons, I guess, if you're not, and if you're just using apps that have guided workouts in like Runner, you might not worry about it too much. But for someone like myself, going down the track a lot, it's very nice to have a lap button. It's just something that I think is a bit of an essential all round. So yeah, I think as smartwatches go, it ticks all the boxes in terms of a run tracker as well. And it is a very serious sports watch that also happens to be a very, very good smartwatch.
Yeah, and just to add that obviously with the Apple Watch, you are getting something that runs on watchOS, and with watchOS we are seeing I've seen Apple kind of delve a little bit more into the kind of training analysis side of things. So we're seeing training load added as a metric, we're seeing effort added as a metric as well. So Apple is kind of moving in that direction. Now, Kieran, how have you found your experience with the Apple Watch Ultra 2 and in terms of your testing over the year?
Yeah, Nick's covered off a lot of those sort of highlights. I think bigger battery life, more rugged build. The action button, I find when you don't have it on the Apple Watch Series 10, you kind of miss it. It's one of those things that when it first came out, I was like, what's the big deal? But if you do use it, you do miss it when you go back. Battery life's a key for me. I tested this actually back. I did 3 days around Lake Garda with the Apple Watch Ultra up against, I think, a Forerunner 965. So it was running like 7 hours a day. And I wanted to really test whether or not the Ultra battery life would work for going sort of longer distance. And it does, it will cover that. So now you've finally kind of got an Apple Watch where if you're thinking about going to 50Ks and beyond, you've got something that can kind of cope. An average 1 hour max accuracy run burns around sort of between sort of 5 and 9% for me, depending on what I'm using during. And then you've just got all of the other tools that if you're going to go on an adventure, one thing I really like, it's got you covered for, if you're doing something like a solo Lake Garda run, you could pop in, you could use all the contactless payments, you've got your calls, you've got all the stuff that you really need to be free and run without sort of having to carry loads of other stuff as well, which I really like. The other thing I do really like the way that they've done the training load and the RPE basically. I think having the ability to tweak how you felt that run went with your perceived exertion and put context to that data is something that a lot of other watches, they might give you the smiley faces, but I think Apple's done it really well, and they're using it to change the readings in quite a good structured way. I really like that.
Yeah, and I think my experience, and I think the reason that I've picked it as well is that my experience has just been solid. I mean, I wish there was another smartwatch out there that I felt that could really rival what I've seen with the Apple Watch Ultra and the Ultra 2, but I haven't seen anything yet in terms of my testing. And when I've kind of picked this watch back up and I've been out running with it again, it just feels, in terms of that experience, the blend of smartwatch and those kind of running watch features, whether it's kind of the native tracking or whether that's, getting that tracking support from the extensive app store that you have. And in that app store, there is high quality apps that really do enhance the run tracking experience on the Apple Watch Ultra 2. I think it just makes it a complete package, and the battery life isn't what I ultimately would want it to be, but I think in terms of pushing things forward, and it is the best battery life that you're going to get on an Apple Watch right now, then I think it's a compromise that I think I'm willing to make, knowing the experience that I'm going to get from that kind of smartwatch and run tracking side of things. Now, this year we did get a new Apple Watch. Now, obviously, the Apple Watch Ultra 2 just got a new colour. We did get a new Apple Watch Series 10. It was a bit more of a radical design. We got a much bigger case, probably influenced by the fact that you're probably seeing more Ultra watches out in the wild. We now got a bigger version of the Series 10 that doesn't have the kind of dual band GPS that the Ultra has, but it has got a very good kind of performing GPS mode in there. It's got all the kind of qualities that you see from a software point of view that you get on the Apple Watch Ultra 2. Now, we've all tested the Apple Watch Series 10, and what have your experiences been with it? And Kieran, I'll go back to you first in terms of your experience with the Series 10.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I think stands out for me is that even though you haven't got that dual frequency or dual band GPS, the performance was actually really good. I did it off and up against the Apple Watch Ultra 2, and I couldn't really find too much to choose between. The heart rate performance is really good as well. In this, that idea that it's thinner and lighter and more comfortable to wear, and you're not having to sacrifice screen real estate for it, is a plus. And I think it's like a nice counterpoint now to the Apple Watch Ultra. If you do want to have something that's going to be a bit lighter and a bit simpler, it's also significantly cheaper, which I think is another standout. You're going to sacrifice battery life for that. I think a 1 hour run for me was 7 to 8%. It does burn much quicker. The rapid charge, though, is another thing that if you're thinking about that all sort of day use, you're probably going to have to charge it. But if you put it on for 5-10 minutes here and there, that does actually offset quite a lot of the battery life problems that you might have from the Apple Watch Ultra with a bit of targeted charging. So you can alleviate some of that, which is a big plus. We would like to see more, obviously, but I think this now with the kind of performance in the App Store backed onto it, if you're looking for something that's a bit more lightweight, a bit easier to wear, not quite got that kind of rugged build, then this actually is a really good performer.
Cool. Nick, now you've used all of the series watches. Now, do you feel like the Series 10 is a watch you could turn to and say, this is a watch I would happily rely on to track my runs?
Yeah, I mean, I would. I do think it's like problems compared to the Apple Watch Ultra 2. I love the design. I prefer the design to the Apple Watch Ultra 2 because it is smaller and thinner, and I like the look of it a bit more as well. Obviously, it's not as rugged, but that's not something I'm too worried about. Like, you do lose some stuff there. The lap button is a big loss. You can get around it with apps that use both buttons at the same time and tapping the screen, but I do wish they'd add that. I wish they'd add precision start to the native workout app as well, that just, you could actually say when you want to start a workout, when GPS is locked on, stuff like that. But I do notice a little bit of a drop off in GPS accuracy, like not on general runs so much, but if I'm going to go and do a series of intervals, especially running around like a loop in a park or something like that, I do notice the Series 10 will just shave off a few corners more and just affect the pacing, and sometimes a little bit like that. But it's not a big loss. Like if it was just the only watch I was wearing, I'd probably be fairly happy wearing it for everything. But it's a watch I think you have to fake a few more compromises on compared to the Apple Watch Ultra 2. So you really want this amazing smartwatch experience, which you do get with it. It's got all the great smarts and everything like that. It's got all the great apps, but you've got to work out a way to take a lap, and you've got to do things like that, which you don't have to do so much with the Ultra 2. And the battery life, like for most of the time, it's absolutely fine. Like most days, I've got no concern at all about finding a quick period here and there to charge. But if you go and if you go traveling or just go away for a weekend, it's a bit of a more of a complicated issue compared to the Apple Watch Ultra 2. So I do think it's an amazing watch. I think it's a very good run tracker. I do think the Ultra does offer a level up for runners, but at twice the prices, that's a little tricky maybe to make a call on whether it's worth that extra step up.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very good experience overall. The test that I've done has been very good. And a little bit like Kieran, I've been testing or using it alongside the Apple Watch Ultra 2. And there definitely are some differences, but they weren't for me the kind of really kind of huge differences that I would think. For a lot of people, the run experience would be very good. I think the main thing I would take away is I feel like if you wanted a bigger Apple Watch, you kind of looked at the Apple Watch Ultra, Ultra 2 and felt like it was a big watch to live with. I feel like the size difference on the Apple Watch Series 10, the largest version, I think will probably work a lot more for a lot more people. So I think that's something to factor in as well. But the Apple Watch Ultra 2 is the watch that ultimately we have picked as our top pick. Now, before we are accused of going all in Apple, we are going to talk about Androids. And I think mainly, it's me who's been kind of testing a lot of the Android stuff. There's always a lot of Android smartwatches that launch. We've had stuff from, Samsung had new watches, Xiaomi, we've had stuff from OnePlus. We've had stuff from Google. We haven't tested the Google Pixel watch, so we haven't had that in to test, so we can't really kind of talk about that watch, but there has been some good watches. And then me personally, I've got through a lot of them. I think, in terms of there being standout ones that offer a good balance of smartwatch and running watch features, I still think we are looking for that really kind of ultimate kind of option that really kind of seeks parity with the Apple Watch Ultra 2. We are going to talk about one watch that was probably the most notable kind of Android launch this year, and that was the Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra, which effectively was Samsung's answer, or it was meant to be Samsung's answer to the Apple Watch Ultra. Now, it had that kind of rugged design, the kind of big case. It's got dual frequency GPS. Had kind of route import and navigation, didn't have the kind of full native offline mapping support that you now do get, whether it's through apps or kind of natively on the Apple Watch. And, the battery life as well, a little bit like the Apple Watch Ultra, wasn't, that kind of mammoth battery numbers that maybe we're expecting to see in the Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra. Now, Kieran, you tested this as well. What was your experience of using Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra? What did you make of it? Do you think Samsung is onto something in terms of having an equivalent to the Apple Watch Ultra?
Yeah, I have to kind of confess, this is the first time I've really used an Android watch in a long time, and I'm obviously in the Apple universe, so it's a bit of a jarring experience when you first go across to it. I think there's a broad agreement that this is the best Wear OS watch for running. There's some really nice things, the robust build. You've got that titanium chassis. You've got a nice bright screen. You've got a wide selection of apps. You've got the Apple-esque action button. All those things are there, and those are nice things. I think you're going to have to like a big Hulk and great watch though to wear this. I found it too big, a little bit cumbersome, a bit too chunky. I found the strap was thick and not very malleable, and there's just little touches which I didn't quite get along with. And my biggest problem with it, really, I found in my experience, was you had this kind of weird sort of hit and miss battery life where sometimes it performed well. So whilst I was running up against the Apple Watch Ultra 2, it actually performed better for over an hour run. But then it would just wipe out in half a day on me. And some days it would, some days it wouldn't. And that was a bit of a worry. Don't know whether the watch wasn't working, but it just wasn't quite there, even with the Apple Watch Ultra 2. Though I do think there's good experience here. It wasn't enough, if I looked at this from a point of view, would I switch over if I was in the Apple universe? Would it convince me to go and get an Android phone and go for this watch? The answer's no. I can see that it's probably the most capable running watch though on the kind of within the Android kind of world.
Yeah, I think this is probably the kind of best performing Samsung smartwatch I've used for running, but saying that, it hasn't been perfect. I think the test I did a race test with the Apple Watch Ultra, and from a GPS point of view, it just didn't kind of sit up with the Apple Watch Ultra 2. And I think from that point of view, that core run tracking experience, and obviously looking at the kind of mapping and navigation support, which isn't really there, which you expect to see on this watch, wasn't there. And my experience of the battery life performance was very similar as well. It was very indifferent, very inconsistent. Samsung do a good job of kind of rectifying these issues, but I think, in terms of being an alternative to the Apple Watch Ultra 2, it's not quite there yet. I'd be interested to see how how Samsung kind of develops it and whether it's going to continue, because they kind of chop and change in terms of the types of watches and the ranges they do. But I think it didn't quite, work for us. I think we can comfortably say, for myself and Kieran. So if you are looking for an Android equivalent in terms of the watches that we've tested, the one we're going to say that is a good one to look at is the Amazfit T-Rex 3. Now, the T-Rex range is effectively Amazfit's kind of outdoor range, and it's really trying to undercut what you would get from outdoor watches like the Garmin Fenix, which obviously is very expensive, things like the Polar Glitter 2X Pro, and this is kind of sitting below £300 now. For below £300, you're getting dual frequency GPS, you are getting offline maps, you are getting something that works with Android and iOS. Now, from a smartwatch point of view, it definitely is a work in progress, but it is learning very quickly. And while it doesn't have this full app ecosystem around it and all these kind of big high profile third-party apps, it's trying to find solutions to make, you know, the experience of using those kind of bigger kind of software and apps more usable. So, you know, you're getting apps for things like Spotify, you're getting things for Sonos, which will, you know, help improve that experience. The notification support is very good as well too. You're getting a music player in there, but you're not getting that kind of offline music playback that you would get from some other watches. But crucially, for me, the tracking experience has been very good. The dual frequency support is very good. It's not spotless. It isn't the best I've used, but in terms of the Android smartwatch I've used, it's definitely felt the most reliable. And you're getting very good, strong battery life performance here. This is a thing that Amazfit has really tried to do with the T-Rex range. It's really tried to push towards those kind of numbers we've seen from other outdoor watches that you do have to spend a lot more money. And you can get strong GPS battery life from the T-Rex 3. You can get good day-to-day battery life. The good is definitely, you know, outweighing the bad in terms of what you're getting here. And I think, yeah, crucially, the experience for me, of all the Android smartwatches that I've tested, the T-Rex 3 has been the one that's really stood out for me. Now, there are other watches out there that are kind of Android and iOS friendly. We should also talk about things from Garmin's range, things like the Venue range, which, and ultimately that's not going to give you all those things like kind of dual frequency, multi-band mode, all of the kind of rich training analysis that you would get from some of the watches we've talked in these other videos. But in terms of a smartwatch and running watch experience, you're getting a good balance there. So, you know, you can look at watches like the Venue as another alternative. Okay, so there you have it. That is our video on the top smartwatches for runners. Now, if you've got any questions about this video or any of the watches that we've spoken about, do let us know in the comments. As a reminder, as we said at the beginning of this video, we do have dedicated videos to other key running watch categories. So if you're looking for a beginner running watch, if you're looking for a mid-range, a very good value, or a high-end running watch, we have videos on the channel dedicated to those as well. As always, like and subscribe, hit that little bell to find out about our latest videos. And yeah, we'll see you in the next Run Testers video.